right, hello and welcome to Digital Marketing Canada. This is episode number 3 that you're listening and or watching, and I am your host, Andrew Schiestel from TBK Creative. If you're a marketer, an executive, or CEO of a medium-sized company and you're looking to master the web and grow your revenue, then you've come to the right place. And let me explain why. In every episode of Digital Marketing Canada, I get the unique privilege and honor to interview marketers, executives, and CEOs of medium-sized companies, and they share with you exactly, step by step, how they use the web to grow their business. On today's call, I bring on Tony Boyle, the president of HR Downloads. HR Downloads is a technology company based in London, Ontario, Canada. They sell membership services for strategic human resource management solutions. And listen to this. The company's only been in business for about 6 years, but they now have over 7,700 corporate clients across Canada with about 12,000 people using their membership services portal. The company has nearly 100 staff, and they just completed another fiscal year where Tony shared that the company did over $9.3 million in revenue, up from $7.6 million the year before. So this is an opportunity to in a certain way when it comes to marketing and sales, the kimono gets opened and Tony shares as a CEO of a fast growing Canadian technology company what they're doing to grow their business. So it's a great opportunity for everyone to learn. On this call, we're going to be covering things like how HR Downloads got its start, their approach to cold calling and buying lists. Tony shares one of HR Downloads' secrets to their success so far, and it's in the strength of their third-party partnership. So Tony explains more about what this is, how they did it, and some specific steps so that you can do it and apply it in your business. Tony also shares how his team comes up with great content and new business ideas for the company. And this is so easy that it's almost silly, but surprisingly, most businesses just don't do it. So listen to that piece. Tony also speaks about online campaigns. If you're a B2B business, you're going to get a lot of value, as did I, from this section. And we also have a lengthy conversation around content marketing in general, talking about free e-guides to offering e-guides for money to businesses becoming more like publishers and media companies and a whole lot more. So this is a very dynamic and informative conversation. Grab a pen, take lots of notes, and enjoy. Welcome, Tony, to the call. All right, Tony. So thanks so much for being here today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. So as our listeners know through the introduction, you're the president and CEO of HR Downloads. What I'd like to maybe do to start off the talk is allow you to share just like who is HR Downloads? What do you guys do? And not only that, but also how did you guys get started? Because I also know you're not too old in the big scheme of things as a company.
It's true. We're only 6 years old. And excuse me, HR Downloads is an online research and advisory firm really geared towards helping business professionals, owners, and HR professionals deal with the ever-changing landscape of legislation and employee retention, and really the whole gambit of HR. And the reason, sort of how we were founded was I was in a senior management role, and I had worked my way up from sort of entry-level executive all the way to director of sales. And throughout this progression, I had a lot of responsibilities that were HR in nature. So, for example, I was responsible for ultimately hiring, discrimination, some training, a lot of progressive discipline. And what I found is because the company I worked at, their core business wasn't HR. It wasn't something they were interested in investing in. So having made thousands of websites as an amateur web designer before that job, I thought, wouldn't it be great if there's a website out there that would kind of help tear down all that legislative fluff on the government websites and really explain what do I need to do to be compliant, and how do I reach out to people who are sort of never taking a career in HR but have these responsibilities and sort of help them mitigate risk. So I began to contract HR professionals, people who had their CHRP designation, their Certified Human Resource Professional designation, and I was paying them to write policies and job descriptions, and me and a few friends were writing articles, and we put this together on sort of a HR hub called HR Downloads, and we were really surprised that after making just a few test calls with very little content, I think we had 50 documents total and a handful of articles, middle managers specifically, and HR professionals here in London were just incredibly receptive. So we actually called it the London Business Directory. And in about a dozen phone calls, we had 3 or 4 sales at a test market price of $100 a sale. So it was really strong interest right off the bat. And so that sort of led us down the path of saying, okay, I think we've got something here. It's time to sort of hire a team and go from there. So within that first year, we were able to sort of open up an office, hire about a dozen people, and 1 in-house HR professional, and provide those documents on an unlimited basis. What we found is a lot of people in the industry were selling CDs or booklets, but it didn't really fit their business need. So we thought, let's put everything up in Word documents, allow them to add their own letterhead, and provide job descriptions under the same format. And it's really just a self-serve model of sort of an HR hub specific to Canada.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and for the sake of full disclosure, so TBK Creative is actually a customer of HR Downloads, and a very satisfied one at that. And I find your business model very fascinating. I do put you in the category of a disruptor in terms of an industry. And I've been doing a lot of research recently, looking at groups like Uber, coming along, Airbnb. A local success story, of course, is Voices.com. And what a lot of these companies are doing, and the way I kind of look at HR Downloads, previous to our membership with you guys for HR services, we were using a professional, a very competent professional who specialized in HR. And he charged out per hour. And you'd have sort of a fixed price per document. You'd charge hourly at, I think it was $160 per hour. What I liked about your offering at HR Downloads, and I assume why you guys have grown so fast in the last 5 or 6 years, is that we're getting everything that he was able to really provide, but we're getting it at a lot less because we're paying more of a membership fee. Can you maybe just share with everybody a couple of things so people know sort of your own company's trajectory into the marketplace? So what did you guys do in revenue in last year, and how many employees do you guys now have?
So to share how we sell our model, basically we sell it on an unlimited basis, so it's unlimited access to everything we produce. We found that really was a big hit with the clients, not sort of hitting them on a piecework style pricing. And from there, last year we did $7.6 million in revenue. This year we're just over 9.3 on our fiscal year ending, actually just finished on the 1st. So fantastic growth for the entire business. There's a lot of things to attribute that to, but I do think that you touched on one, which was really the value. I mean, for a smaller company to have HR on staff is a pretty big chunk of overhead. And what we've done is we've filled, over 8 different positions with very senior HR professionals that companies like yours can get access to for, pennies on the dollar. So, for example, just to share some bios from a few of our professionals, one gentleman was the head of HR for McCain Foods, one was previously the head of HR for the City of London, one for Kellogg's. So we really looked for guys that were maybe close to retirement, really senior, and have sort of seen the whole gambit of HR issues in a company. And we're able to provide that information to our clients in the form of advisory service, which is unlimited calls to those professionals for $1,000 a year. So if you can imagine, most HR consultants will get your first $1,000 in bills pretty quick, usually a couple sit-down meetings and you're already over that budget. So what we were really trying to do is just empower everybody to have access to a really strong team of professionals, but not carry that overhead of keeping them on staff.
I'm going to share a couple of things that I've been just researching recently. Kodak, there's the famous Kodak story where they had something like 90% market share at one point with the film camera. And then, of course, we know the digital camera eventually came out. They did not bring the digital camera to market first. They were behind, and eventually they actually filed for bankruptcy. And this was a company that was worth something like it had like a $28 billion market cap. What a lot of people don't realize about the Kodak story or know is that they actually invented the digital camera.
No kidding.
One of their engineers invented it back in the 70s, something like 1976. But they did not, as far as I know, they did not want to release it out of fear of cannibalizing their own products. And I use that sort of as a disruption example. Blockbuster, we of course know because there's a Blockbuster in every major city across North America. Years ago, they were doing something like 400 and something million dollars a year in 95. In 1997, and I might get some of these sort of dates wrong, but it's around this, 1997, Netflix launches. What a lot of people don't realize is that Blockbuster had a chance to buy Netflix for $50 million in 2000.
Wow.
And they, for whatever reason, either fell through or they turned it down or whatever. And as we know, in 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. I was reading an article the other day. There's this mobile app, which a lot of us are familiar with, and a lot of people still aren't, called Airbnb, where you can go on your phone now, and you can book a place to stay at a city that you want to go to, but you're not booking it at a hotel. You're booking it at one of the people within that city that's offering up their own home, and the pricing is usually 50 or 60% less. I was looking at the stats, and 1 year they did something like 1 million bookings. They were like, just a few years ago, they did 1 million bookings, but within another year, they're at 10 million bookings.
Wow.
So that's the kind of trajectory they're going through. And this article was actually saying that they're the largest hotel company now in the world.
No kidding.
And so, yeah, in terms of, as far as I know, in terms of bookings, which is just phenomenal. And it'll be interesting to see how that happens. So I'm seeing this a lot right now. There's a lot of disruption going on in business, and I see established companies that have been around a long time, and a certain portion of them are not yet fully taking digital seriously yet, because they might still have good EBITDA. That might be a reason for it, and they don't really need to. And then there's another segment, and this could probably, some people listening actually know that business is changing, and they're willing to invest their time and they want to understand how to set their companies up for the future. I consider you a bit of a blazer, Tony, in that I think you are really revolutionizing an industry as we speak with HR downloads. Do you have any tips for the person listening right now who's either a VP marketing director of a very established company, or the CEO of a company? He's cognizant of the fact that things are changing, and he wants to be relevant with that change in the next 5 or 10 years. Do you have any tips at all on what a business can be doing?
For sure, and I think I share a lot of business tips. I have a lot of friends who are young entrepreneurs, and I think we're in a time where a lot of young people are coming out of school and looking to create their own careers rather than just take jobs. And I think that one of the pieces of advice I share with everyone is to really listen to your customers. It sounds like classic old school advice. But for example, we were selling policies, job descriptions online. That had been done, wasn't really revolutionary. One of the things we did was we had a client call in and ask for, she had to hire an IT professional. She was an HR professional. She had no idea what to ask this guy. She said, what can I do? Could you guys help me? So rather than just help her, we put her in touch with our HR professional. We decided to come up with some really specific questions to a C# developer and empower her to have a great interview with somebody who had a skill set she really didn't understand. But rather than just listening to that client for that one-off, I looked at it as an opportunity for all clients and an opportunity for the company on the revenue side. We then took that idea and literally put interview-specific questions on every job description we have. So it didn't matter if you are a warehouse worker or a doctor, you now had a job description that had a posting and also had interview-specific questions. It's not that crazy innovative, but again, if we didn't listen to our client and offer custom requests at no charge, we wouldn't have got to it. So I think a lot of solution providers in our space, I've noticed, especially on the marketing side, they're not listening to their customers. They do take that one-size-fits-all approach, or they maybe don't try things that they tried in the past. So I think a real eye-opener for every business professional right now should be the changing times in technology. If you drive down the street and you look at every bus stop, look at everyone you see on lunch break, we're all attached to our smartphones. We're all heads down on the phone, and it's no business. So we have to look at sort of what are the big picture changes that people are really adopting to. And I think the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was a real great indicator of how to take one really fun, small idea and blow it up huge. So we have this. Not only do we have a suggestion box digitally on our website and a suggestion box in every department in our office, but we also run challenges for our customers. And this is something I'm a huge proponent of. We give away an iPad or a trip or a laptop quarterly, and we put this right on our website, and we ask our clients to poke holes in our stuff. What are you looking for that you can't find? What's missing from other people? And that iPad or whatever that sort of remuneration is that we end up giving up, we'll get hundreds of ideas from our clients. And again, these aren't other firms. These are our actual clients using. So it's a great way to get sort of unedited feedback, keep your offering dynamic.
There is going to be people listening who either are thinking about getting into content marketing or they're currently in content marketing. And a common challenge that I hear out there with businesses is they oftentimes struggle with what types of content to produce, like actually coming up with the creative stage to make it really relevant. And if you're listening, I think what Tony just shared there is worth its weight in gold. So what it sounds like is HR Downloads literally will ask customers, and sometimes through contests, what challenges they may be going through and what is not on the site that they would like to see there. So you're literally eliciting their sort of pain points right from them. So I think that is great advice, Tony. So I want to kind of use that now as a segue and kind of now go down the marketing path. First of all, how many customers do you, give or take, how many customers do you guys have now at I know you're a subscription model. How many customers do you have at HR Downloads?
Yeah, so we're in around 7,700 corporate customers, so that'd be different companies using us, and our website actually has about 12,000 users because each company may have more than one person in HR or more than one person using the service.
All right, so my question for you, and we can start kind of broad with this, is how do you guys market? How do you literally have people know about HR Downloads and then, pull out their credit card and subscribe to your services? Like, how does that actually happen? 7,700 times.
Yeah. So there's multiple different ways. I think first and foremost, our sort of bread and butter marketing is, we are a call center, so we do reach out to Canadian businesses and introduce ourselves on cold calling. Majority of that used to be through purchase leads. So from when we started, we would buy, list leads from sort of Dun & Bradstreet style companies. And then as the web started growing, we started doing a lot more with AdWords. We started doing a lot more with our partners, putting up landing pages for every single partner, doing drip campaign. We also reached out to all of the HR associations across Canada and offered them an incentive for their members. So for example, if you're a member of HRPA, you'll get a 10% discount off all of our products. The same for Alberta, BC, really across Canada. What we found is associations, that's where they get their designation from. It's very important, but they weren't actually helping people do the job. They're really just kind of giving them feeds and really hitting them with a lot of emails a day. So first and foremost, we call folks, we show them what we do, try and wow them. We're calling people who have done those Google searches. They're out there looking for policies. They're looking for job descriptions. They're looking for legislative or case law. So they're a lot warmer leads nowadays than they used to be. I can tell you that our sales staff used to go through quite a bit of rejection and hang-ups in the day, and nowadays when we're calling somebody who's done that search and they found us on the landing page, they're a lot more interested in listening. Secondly would be really, again, partnership channel. So we've got channel developed marketing coordinator who goes out and really aggressively looks at our own clients for partnership opportunities. So for example, we have largest scale deals come from companies that maybe other people would have looked over. So I'll use Boys and Girls Club for an example. One of my partners, Jay Clark, sits on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. They have some pretty strong HR needs and not a very strong HR budget, which does fit our value-based model. But what we were able to do was look at kind of what our charitable contributions to all charities were, what their needs were, and we matched that up, and we were able to put our product in every Boys and Girls Club across the province. That was turned into a very lucrative revenue-generating model and saved them just a ton of cash because they didn't have the option of going to sort of a letterhead-type firm. So I think leveraging your current partnerships, everyone I talk to, there's a lot of room to wiggle there. And if you don't reach out to them, partnerships can really sit on a shelf and be static. So every time we launch a new product, every time we put together a new anything, the first stop with us is our channel marketer. He reaches out to every single partner and shows them a new product before it hits the shelf. This buys a lot of weight. So when we're able to call those partners and say, hey, something amazing is coming. Here's the price point. We want to give it to you for cheaper. We want to get this in your members' hands first, and we want to get that feedback. That's been really, really effective for us because even, everything has an association nowadays, and that association is connected to hundreds of its own businesses and its own core group.
Right.
And so we've been able to really saturate a lot of industries that we wouldn't even look at. So Trucking Canada and a lot of non-for-profits. And I think first and foremost is, picking up the phone and calling people. Second is absolutely the web marketing and putting out assets on landing pages and allowing people to not just get a landing page that makes them cough up their name, but give the asset first. keep those landing pages really tight, ask for minimal information, and get someone on the phone with them as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in terms of your association partnership, so is that a bit of a rev share model? So literally when they sell one of your memberships or refer a business that ends up becoming a member of HR Downloads, are you cutting them a check, a portion of that subscription generally? Is that's what's happening when you call it a reseller model?
In some cases. So it's pretty unique depending on the partnership. So for associations that are professional and offering a designation, generally we don't do a rev share because we don't want clients or the association to be looked at in that light. But when it's exclusive on a partner, so we do both. We do a lot of them where it's just a discount for their members. Some of them we do a rev share. Okay. So for example, we worked with a Trucking Canada company that was part of all this trucking association, and we do a rev share with them. Anything over our base model price. So again, it really depends on where your margins are. There's for some, when they're looking at only bulk purchases, we can obviously do a lot better for them. But I think both are good. Rev share is good. Straight up cross discount is good as well. So we have suppliers that we get discounts from that we offer discounts to, and that is as large as Staples and as small as sort of Lovers Furniture here in town. So my first rule of business before anyone can partner is they have to buy our stuff. And once I get them signed up on HRD, that reciprocating business just never ends.
I will do a shameless plug, and it's not really the intent to do a plug, but very relevant. So one of my companies, AODA Online, is one of your partners at HR Downloads. And so what I can say is that we have received, even just recently, a very large Canadian company as a lead as a result of HR Downloads website. So that just came in a few days ago. And so I can, say from a kind of psychological reciprocation perspective, that makes us really feel good about your brand when that naturally happens. So I just think that's a really cool way to create win-win relationships out there with various companies. If somebody is listening, Tony, and like associations, companies, they get pitched things all the time. You get pitched things, I get pitched things. People listening are getting pitched things. If someone's saying, yes, I like what Tony's saying about maybe getting a little more strategic with our partnerships. It's something we haven't really thought about doing. What literal steps would you recommend that they do so that if they want to develop those relationships, they're actually successful? Because they're going to have to figure out a way to, create that value, the offering, the value propositions. They got to reach out. Do you have any tips to make that whole process successful for them? Because I think you guys have done a really good job at it.
We've been very fortunate for sure. And I think that one of the precursors for us in dealing with anyone is, again, that reciprocal business. Like we would go to, for example, partners with Chartered Accountant Group. So we would go to every trade show or speaking engagement with them we can. We just did a speaking engagement this last week with the Rotary Club. Rotary Club had a couple different memberships, but nothing major. We were looking to really penetrate in it and see how we could grow that out. So putting ourselves into every event that they have, and the truth being told, you got to spend a little bit of money with them. So if you want to be their favorite partner and you really want to sort of have that reciprocal business where they scratch your back, you scratch theirs, I think the first sort of good show of faith is investing a little bit into what they've got. And I'd venture to say that every partner you have has some sort of trade show or conference going on that you could contribute. And it makes a lot of sense because if you can get a booth up, get out there, shake some hands, get some some business cards out, when you do have a partnership with them, that brand is now at least a little bit more familiar, especially if you're stepping into an area that's not really your core focus. So, for example, for us, for municipalities or trucking companies, we'll go to those trade shows where we're the only HR vendor there. So that's kind of a neat edge. But more importantly, later when that association announces, hey, there's this partnership and now you get this deal, there's a little bit of a connect there that can say, oh, I saw them at the trade show, or I saw them at the conference, or I met their channel marketing guy. So really, we spend a lot of money with our partners. We make sure that we belong to every one of their associations. If they have a membership fee, we'll join. So we're members of the Chamber of Commerce here in London, but we're also a member of the Chamber for the province, just so we could get into some of their events and they could start endorsing our stuff as well. And again, it all starts with us. We like to sell the actual partner first. So when we're interested in doing business with anyone, we first try and get them on board with our stuff at any capacity, because then they have that familiarity. And what I find is we have a lot of fans. We have a lot of fans, not so much clients, but they're fans because of how low priced our stuff is. We've been told, and I've actually been told in every meeting I've ever sat with people sort of who are CEOs with a lot more experience than me, and the first thing they always say to me is, Tony, you're too cheap. And, we really like that model. We like that we can put this in the hands of a company with 5 people, or the big giant companies like 3M and Kellogg's are still using us because it still makes sense for them, even though they have the big teams, creating policies and checking compliance. It all boils down to sort of research and admin and data entry time. And that's what no one got into HR so they could sort of write policies. But at the end of the day, it must be done. And so really working on how do we make it as convenient as possible, keep the price really low, and then being visible in the community. Like I started something called HR Donates, where we give $1,000 a month away to a local charity every single month. That comes in many different forms. So we do things like the Amazing Pace or food drives, the sunshine stuff for the kids, basically anything we can get our hand into to both help our community, and it also gives us to get out and meet more folks.
So I want to go back to events, because you said one of the ways to build a good relationship with associations, if the intent is to develop stronger partnerships, is to go out to their events. How many events would HR Downloads go out to in a given year? Like trade shows type stuff?
Yeah, at least 12, one per month. So we try and do one big event per month. And we do the really core stuff. So for the HR trade shows, we go all the way to Calgary, we go all the way to BC for the HR trade shows. It's not a revenue generator for us at the moment, but it is a lead generator for us and does always show us a return at the end of the year, but it's definitely not an instantaneous thing, and I wouldn't set that expectation with anyone. Like, you will have to do a lot more investing before that return comes in. And I think the local part is nice too. Like, so many companies give away to different charity, and but imagine if every young entrepreneur like you or I just focused on their own local charities. Imagine how much difference we could make in 1 year. I know that HR Download is only 6 years old, but I can give away a minimum of $12,000 a year. Well, what can every in London do? So I like really trying to push the envelope and make that impact locally. You can win a lot of fans, and it'll open a lot of doors that you maybe didn't think about exploring.
Now, are you guys going to? That's the charity piece. Are you actually going out to a lot of like association trade shows physically? Are you guys out to a lot of those? How many would you go out to in a given year?
Again, minimum 12. Trying to do one per month. So
same thing. Yeah.
Pretty much any trade show we can get into, even if it's not our core business, because again, generally it's overlooked by the big Fortune 500 companies. So, for example, Carswell and Thomson Reuters is a competitor of ours, but they don't spend time at trade shows. So we show up. We're the only HR vendor there. It gives us a fantastic platform to show other businesses that, and that's kind of a nice thing about HR is that it applies to everyone. So even if you don't have formal HR, doesn't matter if you're a trucking company or not, or if you're a small municipality, you still have that human factor. You still have to worry about retention, leaves, and terminations, and all that fun stuff. So generally, I think looking outside your immediate target audience, there's a ton of opportunity. And where I'd start that ball rolling is looking at my partnerships. Do we have enough partnerships? Are there more that we could explore? Are those partnerships paying off? Are they just sitting there static? We started by, hey, let's put your logo on our page, and we'll put yours on, ours on your page, and okay, that's an okay lead gen, but unless you're incenting those clients to really learn about you, it's not going to do anything.
Okay. And then maybe in the past there was some backlinks that were involved at that as well.
Yeah, but that would be it. It's like a link back and forth with full calls to action, right?
You can only go so far.
Yeah, like we want to put an asset in there, give away something great for both sides, and make sure that your partnerships are being monitored. Like I know in our first year, I think we had 4 or 5 partners, and literally our logos sat on our websites, and it was great, but it didn't bring in any business. So it was a learning curve, but it's a great stepping stone to move forward from.
Okay. All right. So I'm clear now on that information. You guys are doing a monthly HR donate for more the social corporate responsibility side of the business. And then you're also going out to about 12 trade shows annually to strengthen the partnerships with associations out there across Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand. Yeah. And I was curious. I actually asked that question to find out the volume. I didn't know if it was 100, if it was 6, because someone might be listening saying, yeah, maybe I do want to ramp up trade shows. I just wanted to find out from you guys how many that was. I want to scratch something I've been curious about. You said that you at the start were buying lists and leads. So I've been looking at that. Just based on the information I've gotten so far, sometimes those lists aren't always fully accurate. So when you were starting, out, and I'm actually very new to buying lists. That's why I want to kind of scratch my own itch here. What was your experience with that, Tony, when you were buying lists? Were they accurate, and do you have any tips for me or anybody listening if they need to buy lists for certain companies or campaigns? How do you do that better?
For sure. So I guess number one rule would be, don't buy Dun& Bradstreet.
Oh, sorry, what's that? What?
Dun & Bradstreet leads are generally really heavily saturated.
Okay.
So even if information is accurate, what you'll find is they're so marketed to that their threshold for new calls is very low. So we didn't stay too long on Dun & Bradstreet. They're also quite pricey. So we actually found a couple of Canadian companies that offered lead indexes at a far cheaper price. And I think really, like ballpark, we were buying lists of 10,000 plus companies in our demographic for around $250, $275 versus $5,000 we had spent on the DMB lists.
Okay.
So definitely a big difference in where you find those lists from. And also, again, I lean on partners. Like a lot of our lists now, we literally make these partnerships, and especially when you offer the rev share, they're usually willing to give you all of their clients, especially if you have, some credibility in the industry and you're not sort of brand new. So we've been able to get a lot of direct customer lists from our associations and clients that we can call instantly, and because we're named as a preferred vendor on their site, we're safe.
Interesting. So you had less success in the past buying leads from actual lead companies. That's what I'm hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then you've had the most success actually just asking your partners for contacts that they have, their customer bases.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that until we offered up a rev share, handing over your customers is a tricky issue. It's a very high trust ordeal. For our larger partners, that we had initiatives where we had to go through a very strong vetting process before we were allowed to be a partner. Once you get past that hurdle and they trust your offering, or if they're using your offering like a lot of ours are, they were great about giving us our customers. And it's really awesome in the way that associations generally have them on their website. So you're actually able to log into their website, export those entire lists, and go ahead and give them a call. Also think that like leads nowadays, I think it's really changed. I don't think you can work off cold leads like you could 4 years ago. When we started, there was, web leads were so few and far between, and AdWords was there, and we were running campaigns, but it just hadn't matured to the level it did today. So now with all the analytics, you can really target in, and I find that every campaign we start changes really dramatically in the first 4 weeks and gets really effective by sort of month 2. So I'd say HR downloads right now is probably 60% warm leads based from the internet and 40% auxiliary leads purchased from lists or partnerships or arrangements like that.
Interesting. I want to go to something you said. You mentioned campaigns. So I assume you guys are running different campaigns. You're a B2B business, so I think a lot of us marketers, when they hear campaigns, you think about retail, right? It could be like some deal that you have going on the weekend at your 30 retail locations or on your e-commerce website. So in your setting, when you say we're running campaigns, can you explain for our listeners what that is?
For sure. So a lot of times, because the nature of our business is driven by legislative change, and you're quite familiar with AODA online. So when there's a legislative change that requires companies to comply, this is a huge opportunity for us to run a campaign specific to that change. So for example, and not even calling it by name. So, a couple of years ago, Bill 168 was passed. It was the anti-violence and harassment in the workplace. A lot of companies ran Bill 168 campaigns. But what we found is a lot of smaller companies who had owners sort of wearing the HR hat, or payroll was wearing the HR hat, they weren't really familiar with Bill 168. So we actually launched campaigns specific to what it is. So we launched a lot of campaigns under violence and harassment in the workplace, harassment of all different types, and really diversify how we use online marketing to build leads that are specific to that maybe customers aren't looking for. Also, if we notice one product is doing better or worse than the other, we like to do bundling. Bundling has been done, and we've all seen a lot of this, with our home cable providers and everything else that we do. But bundling services is a great way to give clients exposure to stuff that they probably wouldn't purchase on their own. So I'll give you kind of an example of something we've done recently. We launched a product called Policy Manual Wizard. And what this is, basically, it's a walkthrough application that allows companies to go on our website, answer a series of questions like a survey, and it will build your policy manual for you based on your industry, your employee count, your size, and your location. So taking all the guesswork out. So even though our website has all that documentation, and you as a client could go in today and piece that all together yourself, but you're probably going to leave some holes, and that's a pretty big undertaking. Now the system, this little application, just asks you those questions, puts it together for you. So in order for that to really take off, what we did is we bundled it with our advisory service. So we said, okay, this is a standalone product of only $300, but if you buy advisory for the month of X, you're going to get that for free. We find that once people see how easy that is to use, they're they're just completely dependent on it. Once they've used it once, they don't want to go back. So the following year, that'll be a full pop renewal. So you can sort of grandfather them up into using products that maybe you didn't get the steam on you thought you would from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How many of those type of online campaigns, I guess I'm using the word online because I assume most of it, what you do is online, being you're a tech company. How many would you be doing approximately in a given year?
Well, we do a new promotion every single month, so at least 12. Sometimes we'll do them, again, outside of that if there's legislative change. So if the government hands down new rules, we'll sort of jump on that right away. But generally, it's once a month, a different promotion or campaign and focus point. And it's really based on, we're looking at our sales saying, okay, what's really flying off the shelf and what's not and why? And again, surveying our clients. Like, I can't say it enough that it's important for people to listen to the clients. We've all had a bad customer service experience in our life. It doesn't matter if it was at Tim Hortons or McDonald's or Starbucks. But wherever you go in life, eventually you're going to have a great customer service experience and you're going to have a really poor one. And I use those for fuel. When that happens in my life, I always take it back to the business side. So I know that not every single call we make can be perfect. Not every single call we make is terrible. So we go shopping at Future Shop or Home Depot or any big box store, and what happens when you get home? Well, you get that email right away, hey, fill out the survey and win cash. They're incenting us to get back and give them feedback, because if there's no incentive, they don't care. And by that little incentive is enough usually to drive people online to do the survey. So every one of our reps, our customer service reps have it on the bottom of their email. If anyone fills out a survey, we get a chance to give sort of a sunshine moment to that rep and really thank them for a job well done. The same for every product, and even the policy manual builder. We launch it, we let them have it, but as soon as they're done building it, we give them a link with a landing page, direct free call to one of our advisors. So it's like, okay, you're done now. How'd you like to talk to an expert and see how this works? Or did you have any further questions? What didn't you like about the process of this new product?
Right. And so Tony really provided some great advice there, guys, on everybody listening on online campaigns. I'm definitely taking a lot from you, Tony, on the importance of surveying and definitely listening to customers. But you, I think, spelled out nicely sort of strategically your focus around online campaigns. You guys look at moving on legislative changes in the environment when those occur, and then you also look at ways to bundle services. I have friends who, the first point, the legislative stuff, I have friends who own a workplace safety company, about 45 staff, and one of the things, and they've been around about 16 years ago, very successful company. One of the things that was their big break, and I don't remember the bill or the act or whatever, but there was something that happened about 8 years ago where some new workplace safety act got passed or some regulation. And what they immediately did within 3 days, they had hotels, and they're out of southwestern Ontario here. They had hotels booked out right across Canada, and they had their like course syllabus written, and they were out on the phone all within 3 days. And so when you ask them what one of the keys to their success or those kind of milestone moments, they'll say that it was one of those, that was that time, that was one of the times that they'll say that they just simply moved faster than everybody else. Where most other businesses are like, oh, okay, well that's nice, let's start planning, and 2 months later you're finally sending out your first newsletter, right? And these guys were up and running with that promotion within 3 days because you just got to hustle sometimes. The other example I think of is one of my companies, AODA Online. And the only reason we built that software was at the time we found there was so I'll step back a little bit. So AODA Online is used by developers to help them make websites that are more accessible for people with physical disabilities, and that's to comply with a regulation, an act here in Ontario called the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So why we moved on that was, as developers, we were getting approached by clients to build websites that were more barrier-free, but we couldn't find sufficient tools to help us, which put us in a pickle, because we can't be building sites that we're saying are barrier-free and they're not, because then we're contractually liable, and our clients could be fined by the government, perhaps. And so that was an example where we looked at a legislation piece and said, okay, so there definitely is a problem out there that we're experiencing. If we're experiencing this as a vendor, probably other vendors and companies out there in Ontario are experiencing that as well. So those are, two little stories / anecdotes for everybody. Okay. Cold calls. You mentioned you guys, and I know you guys do have a pretty robust call center. How many people, give or take, are actually in that center picking up the phone every day, doing that sort of outreach?
As far as the reps who call out and introduce our business on a sort of cold calling nature, there's about 30.
Okay.
30 different reps, and they're split into different tiers for different product focuses or different geographic locations. We have about 70 people on the phone because our research staff handles those inbound client requests. So we offer, they're on the phone quite a bit. And then we have a core group of people who deal with our existing customers. So our sales consultants, we'll call them, they handle a book of, say, 200 to 300 customers each, and their job is just to make sure that the usage is high, the customer is happy, renew them at renewal point, and really just hold their hand throughout the year. So in total, we're around 100 employees. Probably 80% of that is people on the phones, and the other 20 being executive and, of course, our HR advisors.
Okay. I want to ask in a moment about sort of just tools or software, like how do you kind of keep all that stuff together around that. But just before I do that, I was really curious about cold calls. I'm just fascinated by that area in general. In business, are you finding it changing a little bit? I actually want to share a story between us. So, and I don't mean confidentially between us, but between our two companies. The first time you guys actually outreached to TBK Creative, who's a customer of yours, was not through a cold call. What actually occurred was I Googled something, and this will be fascinating for you to know because I'm sure you always want to know how customers find HR downloads. I Googled something, and I think one of your Google AdWords ads showed up, and it was for an e-guide. And so it was actually a content marketing play you guys were doing. And I downloaded that e-guide because I wanted the content, right? Literally within 5 minutes. Did I ever tell you this story before? 5 minutes later, one of your colleagues from your outreach team called me. Really, really excited and inspiring guy, wanted to share the services with me. And of course, I had a need, and at the time, we definitely had a need around just like strong assistance with our HR, with policies and all that kind of stuff. So consequently, we ended up being a customer. So I would not call that, in my sort of world of semantics, I wouldn't call that a cold call fully. I define a cold call as, you have a name. Yeah, you know the person's title, company, phone number, but they don't know you, and you're picking up the phone. In this case, I knew you guys, so I felt it was a little bit different. I would call that more like an inbound lead that you guys had that you were responding. Not necessarily a hot lead, but certainly a soft lead because I gave you my information of which you could then contact me. Are you seeing anything change in the number of, let's say, cold calls or the percentage of cold calls every year in your business? I'm leading with the questioning a little bit, but I actually don't know the answer. I'm just wondering if you're noticing the need to do cold calls less, and if you're getting more inbound calls, like my scenario, if that's actually going higher, and if that's not the case, please tell me. I'm really curious.
Yeah, so it's definitely leaning more towards warm leads. We call them warm leads when it's a web lead, much like your experience. So we, used to be sort of 80-20. It's probably 60-40, so 60% of our leads now coming from the web on a lukewarm basis, and about 40% are cold leads. And even the cold leads aren't really cold because we really push referral campaigns. It's okay. A lot of companies sort of look over. Referrals are just golden. Your biggest fans are your clients that you have now, and all of them are in that industry, so they do know another prospect that you can help with. So we looked at a lot of different cool, I don't know if you've seen some of the like Living Social and companies like that where you can sort of get your deal for free. We've done all kinds of stuff like that, like refer to friends, get your service for free. Always incenting. Incenting is, I think, one of the biggest things we do. And again, everything you need is in your client base today, unless it's your first day.
Wow. Yeah, good quotation there. I want to clarify something. So you said now it's 60-40, 40% being cold. You also mentioned in the past it was 80-20. Was the 80 cold or was the 20 cold?
80.
Which one was cold?
80.
Okay, so now that's a big difference. So everybody listening, so Tony's saying in the past his team was doing 80% cold calls of all cold calls, and you're saying approximately it's down to 40%.
Yeah, it's been a dramatic change, especially in just the last year or two. Big change. And in the beginning, it was sort of commonplace to do cold calling, but I think that because we kind of pioneered a space, there wasn't really services like ours. We saw a lot of Me Too's come up in sort of year 3 and 4. And so now there's sort of a handful of companies that are very HR Downloads-esque, if you will. And those companies start by cold calling. And so what we find is the more they're cold calling, the tougher that market is getting a little saturated, and it's much easier to sort of target to the precise content that we know HR professionals actually need.
Okay, so you probably have ears perked by many people listening right now when they know that it's possible to actually have a company grow and actually decrease over time cold calls. My example was the case of content marketing. That's how you got the lead, and I deem it as content marketing because you produced a whatever you want to call it, an e-guide, for instance, that was like a PDF, branded, informative, and you had a it was gated content, so I needed to provide my information to your company, which then generated a lead, and then you guys can, and then that goes to sales, and then you can follow up, and that pushes people down the sales funnel. So content marketing, you guys do a lot of. Can you maybe explain for listeners more about just your philosophy around content marketing and what you guys are doing there to generate those kind of leads?
For sure. So I think that content marketing for us is maybe a little untraditional compared to other companies. When I put up a piece of content to create a lead, similar to the situation that we found you, I don't actually want you to buy that piece of content or even have it. And what I mean by that is we put up e-guides, and so for example, the PDF, everything we sell is editable. It's all on Word docs or something you can mold and put your own branding on. So when I sell an e-guide, like let's say termination guide that everyone could use, we get a lot of hits on that. We get a lot of leads from it. But I don't actually just want them to take that static guide, because although it may answer their questions today and help with the 1% problem of terminating someone today, it's not going to ongoing help their HR process grow at all. So what I'll do is I'll price those things pretty aggressively. So for example, just that guide is $199. Now, if you look at our entire web service only being $495, it's a pretty pricey guide. And if you subscribe for $495, well, you get all the guides, when there's about a dozen of them, on top of everything else we do. So you can see that sort of gentle nudge, just saying to the client, well, okay, I can sell you this guide that you've downloaded a copy or a sample of, but why wouldn't we get you on board? Because I've got 11 more of them that are just as applicable.
Now, the e-guide, so it's interesting. So that we're kind of unpacking this more. So you have e-guides that you charge for as one. And to clarify, Tony, the e-guide I downloaded was for free, that particular one.
Yeah.
You guys still do those?
Yeah, we do. Probably the one you downloaded was not sort of an HR meaty content guide. So we have a ton of different assets that we use. Okay. And generally what we'll do is give them a chapter or the table of contents and a couple of policies out of an entire policy guide. But again, we'll price it high to get their taste buds used to sort of where we actually want them to be on a spend. And then we make the value so ridiculous that you can't say no to it. So if you're looking at a free guide on termination or an ebook on anything, really just proves to me that you have some HR needs. And our site has become so robust with over 5,000 documents that once I sign you in and show you how much more there is, it really doesn't make much sense for you to spend $200 on one piece of any kind of content. And it's also the way that we introduce them to unlimited content. Like, we don't want to a la carte charge anyone. That e-guide or that sample e-guide is really just the hook. So we can really show you how many great things we have that apply to you.
I like to really compare, and a lot of people are writing and speaking about this. I just read a really great book by Joe Pleasy. He's the founder of Content Marketing Institute, CMI, Epic Content Marketing. I recommend that for anybody listening who's interested in content marketing. A lot of experts, and I completely agree with it, really look at nowadays a brand could really start to look at themselves as a publisher, as a media company, because you don't need a printing press anymore. It doesn't, you don't have to be spending tons of money on a printing press, and you also have distribution because of the web. And so the way I look at your business, Tony, I don't know if you would say it, you probably would, I would actually call you guys somewhat of a publisher or somewhat of a media company as well. And what I was really fascinated in this book by Joe Pleasy, he creates the distinction that traditional kind of news media groups, their media company for sure, they created media to bring in readership, and you can gain loyalty if it's valuable. And then what they sold was advertising. That was actually their product. And so I think a lot of businesses, when they hear about content marketing, they have a hard time seeing themselves as media companies because we always relate to this radio stations or newspapers as the media companies. We don't relate to ourselves as media companies. But you are that. You actually are that because you're actually producing content all the time that's valuable, which draws in readers. It's the same mechanisms. The only difference is you're not selling advertisements. You're selling HR support services and memberships. But you guys are a content. You guys are a publisher, a media company. At least I would call you guys that in a certain extent. So I wanted to share that with everybody, just sort of as a paradigm, if you will, that you can kind of, or a lens you can kind of look through at your company and think about what, we have expertise in our company, and we have people out there in the marketplace that have problems and pain points that aren't being resolved. How do we produce content to draw them in, solve their problems, and then when they're ready to buy, well, we also have services as well.
Yeah, and I think number one answer, is listen, right? Listening. Like, we can't improve anything we don't measure, and there's so many companies that we talk to and we consult to where they have sort of age-old processes, or they're just, sort of doing the same thing they've always done, afraid to try new ideas, or maybe afraid to try the same idea twice because it didn't work the first time. So I think that for us, I can't stress it enough, I want to hear from every single customer, and we'll go out of our way to make sure that that's worth their time and kind of fun along the way.
Content Marketing Institute did a study a few years ago where they looked at a whole bunch of corporate blogs, and they found the average corporate blog, Tony, in North America had only 5 posts on it. So as you know, content marketing is something that a lot of businesses give up on very, very early. So do you have any tips for the marketing directors or the CEOs listening who might be thinking about starting a blog or getting into content marketing? Do you just have any tips, or maybe they started but it's really lost that kind of excitement, the inspiration has worn off, and it's reached that point where there may only be a few blog articles. They weren't maybe they didn't see any results, so just people got uninspired. Anything you could say to those groups?
For sure. I think that, first and foremost, I like to use every example in my life and relate it to my content. And so I'll give you an example of that. Every time you have a meeting, it's really easy, especially in the larger corporations, to sort of have what I call analysis paralysis. So, your team brings forward a great marketing campaign or a content marketing idea, and it goes around the table, and there's several series of meetings, and even when that finally gets the rubber stamp, if it's not a prompt and quick, reasonably painless process, the enthusiasm is lost. And so, I like to tell everybody that HRD runs on enthusiasm. We spend a ton of time on employee engagement, and we really want to break the mold. So if you look at your inbox, take the last 5 marketing emails you got on tips about marketing blogs, take the best 5 sources that you're used to listening to, and what's the one constant in them all? I think what you'll find is that they're boring. And so us being in HR, it was really easy to poke holes and say, wow, HR is sort of like watching paint dry and can be in real life. So we really wanted to raise the envelope on how we do that. There's a million HR newsletters I get, and they're so terribly boring. So, when we make a title for even the title of an article is night and day on your open rate. You know what I mean? So you could say, hey, terminations 101, and you might get people to look at it, but that's really boring. So saying things like, you're firing the wrong way, ... That title will grab people. So we're real big proponents of sort of punch-in-the-face marketing. And just to define that, we really want to come out of their inbox with life. Every single subject line on every communication to my clients is exciting or really pushing the envelope so that they'll open it.
Any other items around content marketing that you're doing that's worthwhile sharing with the listeners, kind of as bullet points?
Yeah, I think some key takeaways that I learned from our internal marketing staff that I really believe in are, number one, when you're putting content marketing out there, make sure it's your best. So, whatever that is that you sell, a lot of people initial reaction is put out the sort of lowest quality or the cheapest content because they're at risk of a loss of value add. We go the other way. I think take your absolute best asset, put it out there for leads, and then make sure when you call the client that you're not wasting their time. We spend a lot of time on sort of the psychological behaviors of customers, and what I find is if you download a fantastic guide, you've registered to get it, you've already got the guide, if I don't call that person in the first day, there's the sort of warmth of the lead is very dramatically dropping on a time frame. So if I call it the next day, it's probably 50% chance it's not going to close. If I call it 2 days from that, more like 50% chance it's not going to close. If I call it in 5 minutes, that's top of mind, and that's what you're working on. And now I've got a small window to talk about what's on your mind today. If I call you 2 days from now, chances are, if you're going to be busy with other things, it's maybe not your focus point. So I think that putting best content forward first and making sure that that asset, whatever it is, can be included in your offering. So, download this $500 guide today or a sample of it. Then once they sign up for whatever it is that you're doing, give that back to them. Take that off the purchase price. Make sure that they just feel absolutely spoiled with value in their interaction with you. So we look at onboarding every client at around a $500 price point, but I can tell you within 12 months, our average spending price is around $3,000. So it's really about that foot in the door, really kill them with value in the beginning, and then slowly work the relationship to build it up from there. And don't be afraid to give away your stuff. We're big fans of giving away some of our best material. We'll give away free seats on compliance for small companies when we know they need it, because inevitably, it's not the last end of their HR needs. So I think not being stingy with your content marketing is sort of my take on that one.
Yeah. Really try to offer authentic value. That's what I hear that you guys do, and I know you do. All right, email marketing. I know you do a lot of email marketing. Are you guys getting into really some of the more fine-tuned stuff? Are you getting into drip campaigns, really looking at better segmentation? Are you guys doing some of that stuff?
We definitely have segmentation, and that's been sort of forced on us by so many of our partnerships with different industries that aren't our core. So now we're being asked for really specific content for those different groups, which is great for us because it helps us build that core offering. And we do have several drip campaigns set up. To be honest, I'm not absolutely an expert on those, but I know that it's a term that marketing throws around at me at least every week. So I know we're doing it, but at what capacity, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. I just wanted to know if you had anything to share there. Maybe actually, this is a good time. Kind of the pre-interview, guys. Everybody listening, Tony was telling me that HR Downloads is going to be. I think already has just recently did a posting for a marketing director. And if you're listening to this call in a year, this is probably an irrelevant message, so fast forward about 40 seconds. But if you're listening to this call in about a week and a half or 2 weeks after we complete this, which is around when it's going to go live, be aware of that. So Tony, can you share with everybody just the role that you're looking for, and what do you think? And I know this is a very opinionated type of answer that you have to provide naturally, but what do you think makes a really good marketing director for at least your environment? Like, what are you really looking for in terms of skill sets and attributes?
Great question. So for us, I think one of the things that we and probably a lot of companies struggle with is really having that bridge between marketing and sales. So we're a very sales-focused and driven organization, and although we have a good marketing team now, we're looking for somebody to really help us bridge that gap and align those ideas. So we find that marketing has some great campaigns and it runs, but when we do new product promotions or new partnership promotions, the sales team definitely isn't as excited as I think they could be. And so our marketing right now is driven by a team of executives, comes up with a few ideas, it gets pushed out to the web. But we're not really involving the sales team enough, and we're not thinking about it from a sales team mentality. So we're looking for a marketing director, with 5 to 10 years experience, specifically in online and web marketing, and somebody who's really used to dealing with the front line of sales reps to get them excited about that new initiative. So for example, we did a campaign last month for 20% off training if you buy all of our services or our whole product suite. The sales reps really got behind that because that's something that they can use as a lever to help close business. So it was really directed at them, and they could get jazzed about it. But in the past, unless it really reflects their everyday, they don't seem to buy in. And having the entire sales staff buy into a marketing initiative is obviously paramount. So for us, there's a big gap between sort of our executive team and sort of the foot soldiers who do the reaching out. And so we're looking for somebody who's had that collaboration and preferably gone through the growth curve. I mean, being 6 years sort of doing this out of my basement by myself to 100 employees now, it's been an aggressive growth curve, and it's caused a lot of sort of business maturity things to happen, I think, a little bit more quickly than they would, much more quickly than they would in a traditional business. And so I'm looking for somebody who's worked in a company similar to ours to really help push those two teams together. We're doing great on leads, but I think where we struggle is the internal communications between sales and marketing, and really making sure that it's not just a marketing campaign to do great things for HRD, but it's actually going to involve each and every individual and affect their bottom line in a positive way.
You are bringing the silo between marketing and sales down. silos, I guess, plural. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And I think, and why that's important, back everybody to our example earlier of Google something, a topic, I download an HR downloads e-guide, and then a salesperson calls me. So that actually is a real example of marketing and sales blending. I don't want to, this doesn't have to be a really long answer, Tony, but I want to go back to a topic that I was going to touch on earlier just for our listeners. What software do you guys use, or softwares, to kind of tie all this stuff together from sort of a CRM perspective so both marketing and sales can communicate?
We're Salesforce, so we've been Salesforce since our second year. Yeah, we originally started by building our own CRM, which is, I think, a mistake that a lot of young companies make. Quickly outgrew its capability. Plus, Salesforce has just grown so much. It's such a cool company. I mean, if you've ever seen what they've done with gamification, there's so much fun you can do to get your sales reps actually excited about overachieving. You know, so nice. So if you've seen gamification, but it's basically a way to put a bunch of cool incentive programs inside Salesforce so reps can actually see, you know, where are my metrics compared to the guy next to me, who's top dog on the day, what do I need to get there, how am I tracking towards goal, and it turns sort of everyday drudgery of metrics management into kind of a fun game. And the reps actually get behind it. Having younger staff, that's been, you know, something really great for us.
Okay, good advice. Salesforce, one of the big ones. I'm for our agency looking at Salesforce, but also looking at Infusionsoft, and also looking at HubSpot, because I haven't actually demoed it recently, but apparently this week HubSpot, I think it was this week, HubSpot actually released their CRM.
Nice.
Apparently, so they've built their own CRM, and I think I was talking to one of their associates there, and they actually built it from the ground floor up, I believe, is what he said. So those are some other CRMs if you're out there wanting to look at Salesforce, Infusionsoft, HubSpot. Okay, so starting to sort of wind down this talk. Any tips you would share with CEOs or marketing directors or marketing coordinators that are out there listening? They want to do a good job. They want to continue to help add value, grow their brand that they represent, but they may feel like they're falling a little bit behind with how fast the web and digital marketing changes. Do you have any tips for our listeners on how to keep up with it all?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing they should do, and I spend a ton of time every single day all over social media. So every possible platform that I can be on throughout the day, I'm on. So we'll post things on LinkedIn, not me personally, but we'll post things on Tumblr. We have a blog set up on there. And also, again, really just looking at what is everybody doing. We're all heads down our smartphones. Everybody's on social media of some sort. So if you're not involved in that game, easy step one is really, you know, it's time to start. Number two is if you start with social media, it's a really great time because there's so many examples of what's being done poorly. I think there's a lot of opportunity for everybody to look out there and really raise the bar on fun. Something we talk about here a lot is just having fun. So when you send that next email communication to your clients, read the title and ask yourself, does this look like everything else I've got? If it doesn't, I'm failing. But this needs to be, how do I raise the bar on what I'm doing? How do I really sort of reach out and give that prospect a cold glass of water right in the face to make them excited about reading something that kind of challenges the norm? And I think that with the demographic today and all of the sort of technology taking over and grasping everybody's mind, first thing to look at is, you know, is everything you're offering available on any platform? Are you reactive? Make sure it doesn't matter if I'm on my Samsung tablet or if I'm on my old school BlackBerry, you know, can I get to your resources and do they still make sense, or is it all jumbled? Like, I'm sure there's something you hear a lot, but making sure you're mobile friendly, I can't stress enough, because that's really how the world is moving. I think, you know, soon everything will be on smartphones, including classrooms and courses, because that's just the direction we're going. It's really tough to ignore how strong of an impact these mobile devices have become on our everyday.
Yeah. I forget who said it, but somebody, I'm sure, who is very smart said once, lead with mobile in strategy in the near future. So it's like make a lot of your decisions now from mobile first. It's that kind of mobile first mindset. I forget who said that, but I think it's becoming more relevant than it has in the past. Time management. So you're obviously a busy guy. You run a company with over 100 staff that is quickly growing. Like I'm, you know, it can be much easier to run a company, I'm sure, with 100 staff if it's had 100 staff for 10 years. But you guys, you know, however, you know, maybe you're at one point you're at 20 staff, and then you're at 50, you're at 70. You grew real fast, so you're busy. And you take time to go away. I know we're Facebook friends, and I get to see your pictures of you just, you're in Turkey one time, and then you're in the Caribbean the next. You have a partner, you have kids, you're doing all these things. So how do you keep it all together, time management and that balance that I think all of us struggle with at times, that personal, work, personal / work life balance? How do you keep it all together?
Two things. I think work-life balance for me, I've really learned a lot this past year. We just hired our first general manager, which is a big step for me. And I think all entrepreneurs and founders get to the point where they realize that they're sort of bottlenecking and they have to let a little bit go. So I hired a general manager this year that I can't tell you how great it's been for me. And what I did is being a creative guy, I sliced off all the stuff that's sort of business as usual I didn't need to be doing. So for example, every manager in the building's attendance was still coming to me. That's not stuff I need to manage. Growing the marketing department instead of just running with Tony's next crazy idea, hiring that marketing director I think will help. So I think sort of big picture to put that in a nutshell is don't be afraid to delegate, but don't delegate the stuff you love. So it seems silly, but as a CEO, I spend a lot of my day improving graphics because as a graphics kid, and I went to college for that, and I really still enjoy web design, and I want to make sure I love everything that goes on that website. But, I don't need to manage things like time off or the facilities or all of these little details that come to you. So I would say to anybody who is capable, don't be afraid to hire a number two. Put a lot of thought into who that is, and then delegate all the stuff that does not make you love work. Because if I love this place, it's way too much for any one person to manage if they're not enjoying themselves. And so I think that coupled with health and fitness is a great kickstart for me. I mean, I spend every single lunch hour at the gym, and that's my own quiet time to unwind, and allows me to come back sort of excited about the day. And I don't get bogged down with sort of 1% issues that really shouldn't come to an owner.
Yeah, and I'm also hearing through it all, I'm hearing that you have a lot of natural passion and enjoyment for what you do. So, it really comes through whenever I speak with you. So I'm sure that plays a big role. Actually liking it. All right, so I want to sort of what we've been doing on these podcasts. We're doing these kind of like quick segment where we do these rounds of questions. I ask this question, there's 8 of them, and then you're to give a fairly quick answer. I've been playing around with a different name for this. I was calling it the lightning round, but I feel like, people have been calling this stuff lightning rounds for like 20 years. So I was thinking today, let's call it the Ethernet round. Ethernet faster wireless, right? But I was talking to one of my developers. He's like, Andrew, Ethernet's not the fastest thing anymore. I forget what he said, but there was something else that's faster. But it was 2 words, so it didn't sound that good. So for today, Tony, let's call this the Ethernet round, but it may change in the future.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, so one business book. You all set for this?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. All right, one business book you'd recommend to colleagues.
I'm going to say Brain Steering. Brain Steering. Yeah, it's the last book I read, and oh god, I can't even think of the author at this moment. But it's about how to make decisions differently than you do today, and it's really going to change the way your synapses work when you're having to make quick decisions.
Nice. I wrote it down. I'm going to look into that. One fiction book you'd recommend for friends.
One fiction book? Oof, I don't read a lot of fiction. Does The Wealthy Barber count?
I don't know. I haven't read The Wealthy Barber. A fellow Canadian. All right. What time do you arrive at the office typically?
I'm at the office every day at 10 a.m. And a big part of that is because I have 4 children, and I like to help my fiance get them to school. So I think if it wasn't for the children, I'm generally a 9 to 5 guy.
Okay. What time do you leave? Oh, so what time do you leave the office?
5 o'clock every day.
All right, so 10 to 5. Gotcha. Now, I'm sure you do some work from home when things come up work-wise. So how many hours in a given week do you think you're putting in on average?
I'd say probably 30.
Okay.
Yeah, and a big part of that is just, again, training at lunch, right? I think it's so good to get out of the office once a day and sort of recharge so that you don't feel that drudgery of too many decisions in one day.
Yeah. Okay. How do you keep up with industry news?
Again, really do a lot of blogging, a lot of time on social media. I belong to a ton of different networks for young entrepreneurs and young leaders, and I find that to be fantastic fuel for the fire.
Okay. Email or phone guy, and why?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer quickly, but considering we're on the Ethernet round, I'll try and go quick. I prefer the phone because I find that I can make a lot more impact on the phone. I think an email is a necessary tool, but it doesn't persuade or inspire anyone. So even when asked a simple question by a different department, I'll generally walk over there and have a discussion with them. It's much easier for me to get them excited about something with myself rather than just text.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I'm still a phone guy. If I need to deliver, let's say, bad news or something that needs to really make a difference in communication, I think it's so easy for us to send out an email, but it's just not the same as having a real conversation with someone.
For sure.
This last question, number 8, similar to, I gave Tony these questions in advance, but this last one's slightly different, so I apologize for not updating you, but it's not too far of a departure. So, but a little curveball here for the last one, Tony. If you could impart wisdom on yourself the year you were starting HR Downloads, wisdom you know now that you didn't know at the time, what would that piece of wisdom be?
You know, I'm going to take a page out of Steve Jobs' books here, but I would say that wisdom would be, don't be afraid. You know, I have a lot of trepidation in leaving a very successful job as a father to take on this ordeal. And I think that tentative approach to a lot of our initial products probably did cost us a little bit of growth, even though we're, you know, very successful and happy with our growth. But I think number one thing is don't be afraid to go after what you believe in. And again, just challenge the norm. Like, I really like to get out of the box of traditional. So whatever it is you're doing, whatever business you're working in, whatever marketing campaign it is, if it's anything like what you've seen before, throw it away and start over. You know, I think it's really important to push the envelope in everything that we do. And it's not, you know, profit isn't a dirty word. So I think it's okay to talk about the goals of everything you want to do. Like, the goal for my marketing campaign is to make profit. The goal of HR Downloads is to make profit. And along the way, I want to have a lot of fun and you know, grow myself professionally. But at the end of the day, it's all about profit. And I think that everything we do outside of the ordinary will get a better response than the same vanilla approach that everybody's doing. I really attribute our success to that sort of mantra the whole way. We've kind of looked at what everyone else is doing, totally break that, and go a different way.
All right. Great way to end the call. Tony, thanks so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with everybody listening.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
See you, man.
Take care.